Welcome to the full 7-day Mexican Riviera cruise on the Navigator of the Seas. And so it begins. This is the Navigator of the Seas. I just spent a week living on the ship with a large group of my family. And this is what happened each day. And this is what happened on day one. Once we got on the ship, we had to go to our muster station, which is where we would go in case of an emergency. Ours ended up being in the main dining room, D19. We had just traveled for quite a while and all decided to go to the Windjammer, which is their buffet. My first meal on the cruise ship consisted of a hamburger and fries. Well, it was absolutely delicious after not eating all morning. Our rooms hadn't been prepared yet when we were done eating, so some of us decided to explore the ship a little bit. The Royal Promenade runs through the middle of the ship and is really pretty. There was this massive expanding sculpture on the ceiling that was honestly a feat of engineering. On the way through, we ran into the table where we could pick up our drink package cups, which was nice because I was excited to try their freestyle machines. With our rooms not open until 1, we wanted to explore more, so we headed up to the top deck, where of course, we ran into the ice cream station and had to snag one of those. Looking out over California made me yearn for sun and warmth. It was so cold in California, and just foggy. I was excited for Mexico. Going even further to the back of the ship, we found the water slides and the sports court area where, yes, there was even a rock climbing wall. I had to try that at some point during the cruise. And the flow rider looked intense as well. Oh gosh, I had so much to try. Getting a little tired of exploring, my sister Kenzie and I went and sat in a nice lounge called the Cosmopolitan Lounge, where we people watched. Oh look, that's my mom and dad. Now, we were all ready to drop our bags off in our rooms, and suddenly it was 1. We got to go into our rooms, and I was very excited. We got our own virtual balcony, and everything looked really nice. A little tight, but totally enough room for 2 people. All 21 of us decorated our doors, and we all had quite the nice identifiers on our doors. Now, you'll see this a lot, but live music was one of my favorite things on this cruise. We visited Cafe Promenade, which was one of the free food options on the ship, where we sat, ate pizza, and listened to a groovy band before we sailed away. We all met up for the sail away party, but it was actually cancelled due to the gray-looking weather and the fact it was raining. So we all decided to head up to the bow where the helicopter pad was, and we all watched the sail away from there. We all loved watching the sail away, and we're excited to get this show on the road, or should I say water? Anyways, we were all just chilling in the open air watching the water flow past, the boats guide us out, and finally we hit open water. We were on our way to Mexico for fun in the sun. Everyone was bundled up because the wind was starting to pick up as our speed started to pick up. This was the first real moment when our entire family was together having fun, so we took a family picture once everyone else had moved out of the helicopter pad area. We took some pictures in the bow as if we were the king of the world, and then we all gathered for a family picture with all of our t-shirts. To celebrate, we tried to do the wave. During this cruise, we had an early dinner that was at 5 o'clock every night in the main dining room. So that's where we headed next. I got some delicious southern fried chicken, while some others got steak, and both were delicious. If we were going to be eating like this every day, Oh goodness, I don't even want to think about leaving the cruise. Dessert was key lime pie, which apparently we all wanted key lime pie, other than Flynn, who wanted some strawberry ice cream. It was a weird feeling having all of the choices, almost a learning curve in ordering. Before the cruise, a lot of us had booked the Royal Escape Room, called the Observatorium. We were all rushed into a room where a pre-show played, telling us all about how a crystal was needed to save all the time in the world, because some sort of timekeeper wasn't doing their job or something. We had 50 minutes to escape the room. The first thing I noticed when we came in was just how elaborate it all was. We all started looking for clues and couldn't find anywhere to start. Finally, we found somewhere, and Parker and Sophie started working on the start of all the puzzles. Slowly, we found more pieces and all found jobs to do, but by far the hardest job was what Parker and Sophie had to do. Turning the telescope was by far the most fun part for me, but most of the time, I was wandering around not sure what to do to help. I just couldn't see how anything connected. One by one, we got the clocks moving. We had 3 out of 4 of the clocks done, but Parker and Sophie had gotten halfway through the last puzzle, where you had to figure out the weight of 9 blocks with a 4-block scale, and you had none of their starting weights. Let's just say those two are math wizards. Finally, we got the crystal vault open and had to figure out what was next, as the wall lit up with colors and alarms went off. We were all staring at the crystal, figuring out what to do. Now, this is where I became useful. I started playing with the spinning circles, and turns out I had to align them, which I totally did accidentally, but hey, I still did it. Some lights flashed and the timer stopped. We had gotten out of the escape room all together, with 12 minutes and 33 seconds left on the clock. We were all exhausted and in need of fresh air, so we went outside and it was a beautiful night out. We all stood around talking for a while, and then I split off with Kenzie and we went to go get some really healthy snacks and really healthy desserts. After that, and a quick game show that our family went to watch called Majority Rules, we decided it was time for bed. But, of course, not until after a late-night pizza stop. Oh goodness, if this is how every night is, this is going to be such a great cruise. Good morning! It's the morning of day 2 on this cruise, and I started breakfast off with all of this deliciousness. How about let's start a counter to see just how many donuts I had on this cruise. I'm scared. Of course I had to take some back to my room. This morning we also had ice skating booked for us on this tiny ice rink, but it felt so cool skating in the middle of the ocean. The ice wasn't great quality, and the skates were definitely rentals, but I can tell we still all had a blast anyways, other than when Jake biffed it and cut up his arm. We were feeling a little bit cooped up inside, so we went to play some shuffleboard out on deck 4. My grandpa was killer at this and ended up scoring 10 points on his first try. Didn't last long though, my dad totally knocked his puck out. Wow. I wasn't very good at shuffleboard. Maybe I'll understand it next cruise. There's an art auction that happens on the ship, and we went to watch it. The first painting sold for $125,000, and the rest didn't sell very well. The guy announcing was saying a bunch of nonsense, but that made it all the more fun to watch. Of course, I had to try El Loco Fresh, their Mexican grab-and-go restaurant, at some point, and it was only okay, so I chased it down with an ice cream cone. Coming back to the room was a pleasure, because we got our first towel animal from our housekeeping person, Caramel. I'm pretty sure this one is supposed to be a duck. After finding that in our room, it was time to go to the world's sexiest man competition, and I was so glad that no one in our group decided to give it a go. I wanted to go down to the promenade for some pizza, and I was met by this wonderful pianist in the elevator. I mean, give him a quick listen.
Thank you. See ya.
And immediately entering in on the promenade, there was a rehearsal for a surprise flash mob that would happen at the end of the cruise. Shh, don't tell anyone though. I got some pizza and headed up to the library for some card games with my cousins. We were there for about an hour playing Uno and Spot It, and I totally won. I didn't. Tonight was formal night, so we headed back early to our rooms to get ready in our formal clothes. And when I was headed out with my mom, she saw the piano guy and had to squeeze in to listen to him. She would not accept any other elevator and legit waited for 15 minutes for his elevator door to open for her. He was talented, though. Tonight, the Playmakers Bar was unbelievably crowded because of the BYU game that was happening that night, and a lot of us on the cruise were from Utah somehow. Heading to dinner, we had to take some pictures in our formal clothes before it got too dark. I don't want to toot my own horn, but we are a pretty good-looking family, and now we have the pictures to prove it. Tonight at dinner, we had great options to choose from. After watching Flynn eat a roll in the most interesting way, I got the chicken cordon bleu, and some others got the linguine and the herb-crusted salmon. I will never not feel fancy eating in the main dining room, especially because they just kept bringing us out drinks, and we ended up with 18 glasses on our table. For dessert, I got creme brulee, and it was so good, even for someone who's not a fan of custard. We all looked so fancy tonight during dinner, so we went and marked off something that was on my grandma's bucket list. Family pictures. We all lined up for pictures and talked for a while we waited for our turn. Finally, we got to climb up the stairs and get ourselves ordered and all ready to get pictures taken. It was only a little confusing, but in the end, we did get everything figured out and ordered so that we all looked nice and in some sort of formation. We were all ready to sit down once again, so we strolled into the Royal Theater, and tonight the showtime was a ballroom dance show, which was super cool. I got to sit next to my grandparents, which was awesome. The dancing was really impressive, and you had to realize that they were doing all of this on a moving ship. But the ballroom show was really just stalling and taking up time before it was time to listen to the Navigator of the Seas onboard orchestra, the High Seas. You actually have all been listening to their songs in the background this whole time. They are so talented, and we all just sat back and enjoyed their music. I will never get tired of listening to a horn section this good. Sadly, I had to step out before it was over so I could get the nightly dessert from the Windjammer. Tonight it was crepes, and oh man, I love crepes. I'm pretty sure I had 7 crepes that night. Thank goodness for my strong metabolism. Everyone else came up and joined me, and we just feasted until we were full, and then took the rest to our rooms. Of course, I wasn't done eating food. It's impossible to ever be done eating food on this cruise. So, I went to the Royal Promenade and got some pizza and cookies for my sister and I to eat around 10 o'clock. Once again, never too late for food. The barbecue chicken pizza was so good. They had a different type of pizza every day, but this was my favorite one. Finally, after scarfing those down, it was time for bed. Such a good day. I don't think I've ever slept better than I just did. It's the morning of day 3, and we should be pulling into the port of Cabo at any moment. Not a lot to see out of the virtual window, though. About an hour and a half before I woke up, my mom had gotten up early to get in line for tendering tickets. We would use these to get off the ship in time to meet our excursion. She was 20th in line, and there were just so many people who had gotten up late and had to wait forever in line, unlike her. She got in line an hour before the ticket area opened. She told me this all after I got ready and had some delicious donuts and breakfast with this beautiful view. Then, I went to the progressive trivia, which is trivia in rounds that get harder as the cruise goes on. This was round 2, and my family and I got 12 out of 20 on this round. I stopped back in my room and saw through my screen that we had arrived at Cabo. It was super pretty, but it was even more pretty on deck. The sun was shining, and even though it was the middle of winter, it felt warm and nice to be outside. I got to the railing and looked off into Cabo. My first impression was just how pretty it looked, and my second impression was just how many boats there were in this little bay. We were headed onto land soon and would have to tender to the land, or take a little ferry over to the docks. While we waited for our tender ticket numbers to be called, we sat and had some lunch all together enjoying the sun. I went to the Windjammer and got some good meat, and then I had to join my cousins in getting more ice cream. It's never enough. Finally, our ticket number 4 was called, and we headed out of the ship and onto the tendering walkway to get onto the ferry. It was way weird seeing the ship from this angle. It really gave you a sense of scale for the ship that you just sailed to Cabo on. The ride over to the land was super wavy, but we all enjoyed the ride, and I especially enjoyed it because I love being close to water. As we watched our boat glide past the Navigator of the Seas, I had the feeling that I would never get a prettier view of the ship. It was just so picturesque. Anyways, after a 10-minute tender, we got to the dock and we were able to all get out of the waves. But not for long. We were headed to our excursion and we would feel the waves much more then. And we wouldn't see as many sea lions as on land. Like this one right here. I had no idea that sea lions were so loud. Cabo was a very welcoming place, as in they had 700 merchants trying to sell us stuff directly off the ship. Anyways, our excursion for Cabo was this private catamaran and it was amazing. Our catamaran guide was this chill dude named Danny. He was way cool and he was actually originally from Utah, but he moved to Cabo years ago. After the telling of the rules, we were on our way through the waves and water of Cabo. We had to stop first at this arch that we got pictures at, and it was so cool knowing that it formed naturally. Nature is crazy. After we got all of those pictures taken by our onboard photographer, my dad, we were able to head to this other cove or bay where it would be time to snorkel. While we were there, we had the bar introduced to us, and let's just say we didn't end up using it to its full extent. The catamaran we booked is totally a booze cruise with a personal bartender, but we all just ended up having unlimited virgin pina coladas, which was awesome. We were all just happy not to be drunk. And the pina coladas were so good, even without a blender on the boat. The water in Mexico is so blue and is so calming when you cruise on a catamaran over it. You can feel the waves much more on this smaller boat than on our cruise ship. We arrived at the bay and floated in further than all the other ships and then anchored there. Danny set us all loose with all of the equipment after giving us another set of rules for snorkeling. We got the snorkels, hopped in, and were immediately surrounded by fish. It was such a disconcerting feeling knowing I was inches away from the fish. But I knew I could take them if it ever came to that. Now I don't have any footage of the swimming or paddleboarding, but I do have film of the food they gave us after we were done. It was so yummy. Some chicken, chips, guac, beans, and rice. All of it absolutely hit the spot after some time of seeing all those fish, and it felt like a meal that was true to the culture of Cabo. 1 hour of snorkeling was up and it was time to head out. Little did we know we were going to be whale watching after swimming. And heading out to the whales was super cool because off in the distance, you would start seeing the blowholes blow air and water out, and you would squint your eyes and ask yourself, "Is that a whale?" The answer is yes, it was a whale. Twice we saw their tails rise out of the water and then they dive down. Realizing that something so massive was underneath the water blew my mind. The ocean is such a vast expanse that we just don't know enough about, or at least I don't. We were running out of time with our private catamaran, so our captain decided it was time to go back to the docks. Hitting all of the waves on the way back gave Joe, Flynn, and Jake a way to fly. Well, a way to try to fly. We all had an amazing time with everyone, and it felt like the best way to spend an afternoon I could think of. It was a bit of a splurge, but it was a splurge that was more than worth it. The warm sun, the cool water, the fun time, the gorgeous scenery, the cool guides and boat hands, all of it was perfect. We were so tired after whale watching, so a couple of us decided to sit down and take naps on the front net of the catamaran. So comfortable. We finally started to see our ship in the distance, and we were excited to get back and take a slightly more comfortable nap. Though, we were sad to leave the catamaran. Seeing the cruise ship from so far away, and it still appearing so big in my vision, just gave another testament to me about just how big this ship was. We got back on the dock and did a little bit of Cabo shopping and another little bit of picture taking with the family, and then it was time to get back on the ship. We got to go back on a different ferry, and it was a lot less wavy on this one on the way back, though it took much longer to get off this tender than it was to get on the previous one. Waiting in line to get back on the Navigator took forever, but when we finally did, we realized we had no time to nap and just got ready to go to dinner. And this was the most gorgeous night to go to dinner. The silhouette of the mountains of the Bay of Cabo was absolutely stunning with the sunset behind them. The appetizer today was shrimp cocktail for me, and I don't usually like shrimp, but this was so good. We finished dinner much quicker tonight, and then Eric, Grace, and I decided to go do some rock climbing. Joe and Flynn came along too, and everyone did an amazing job climbing up the wall. Though I must say, I was the fastest. I'm so happy that I got to try out the rock climbing wall during this cruise. Tonight's dessert in the Windjammer was churros, and they were so-so. Didn't really feel like real churros. So instead of feasting, I went down to the Royal Promenade where the high seas were playing big band jazz with everyone else. It was absolutely fantastic, and my dad was vibing, one of the only ones not sitting down, as he just loves jazz. I think I got that from him. I hope I get to hear the high seas another time on this cruise. They really are just amazing. The showtime tonight was Michael Hawley, a comedian juggler, and he was just so much funnier than I could have ever expected. We all ended up going, and we all had a great time. We really wanted more of this guy, but we were only able to make it to the 9:15 show that night. His whole shtick was that he juggled, but he did cooler and cooler things while spacing them out with more ridiculous things. He did a lot of crowd work, and that made everything just that much better. I mean, there was this one girl he brought on stage to juggle with him, and she wasn't bad at throwing per se, but I don't think she understood the assignment. It was hilarious. He even juggled an axe somehow. I don't even understand how anyone can do that. He finished his set, and we decided it was a bit late and we were all more than a bit tired. As we went to bed, we passed the Latin dance white party that we weren't participating in because of our sleepiness, and it actually looked really fun. But I knew it would be much better to wash up and just go to bed, so I was ready for the big day tomorrow in Mazatlan. Good morning, everyone. It is the beautiful morning of day 4 here on the Navigator of the Seas. I woke up pretty late today and immediately had to go get breakfast, which was so good. And I had breakfast with Eric and Lauren. Of course, I had to leave with a few donuts and a pastry. It'll never be enough for me. We arrived pretty early in the port of Mazatlan, and it was gorgeous. You could see the whole area from the deck, and we had to dock in an industrial port, so we saw lots of containers. We were ready to get off the ship through its gangway and head out into Mazatlan because it just seemed so nice outside. But it also meant that we would be closer to our excursion than before. And today's excursion would be a fun one. We got to go on these shuttle type things that seemed very fitting for this industrial port, just to get to the touristy area of the port. We were all fit and ready with our swimsuits and hats and sunglasses, ready for a beach day. As we rode the shuttle into the sunshine, it was clear that this was not Utah. It was actually quite warm, and that was such a happy thing for me because I had been so tired of the cold in Utah. We got off the shuttle at the port entrance and headed into the shops and tourists part of Mazatlan and just walked past everyone. The culture shift out here is wild. Unfortunately, as soon as we got out, no one could remember or decide where we were supposed to go. Some people led us across the street, which was wrong, and others were fighting to just walk in the direction of the Stone Island ferry. As we walked to our destination, we got to admire the fancy ornate Mexican fences, and also the very beautiful boats that they had around the water. In all honesty, this was a very pretty walk as we got closer to being able to see Stone Island. I wish we had this sort of stuff in the States. We paid 40 pesos to get on this ferry, and everything seemed very rickety, but that was totally fine. I mentioned the pesos because they become a problem later today. You'll see. After our wonderful ride on the ferry over to Stone Island, we got off and were met by this guy with a baby monkey. Sadly, it would have cost money to take a picture with it, so we didn't. It was a totally different vibe on Stone Island. Not a lot of houses, not a lot of touristy feeling stops, but we did find the beach quite quickly with the help of a local, who was also trying to sell us his beach property for the day. We spent like 20 minutes walking along the beach and then randomly settled on a certain company's piece of beach. They had boogie boards for $5 for the whole day, and we got one of those immediately. They also had a gigantic banana tube, but that was just too expensive to go out and ride on it, and there was enough to do that we didn't feel like we needed to spend that money. It was a crazy beach. We saw some crazy things like this pony that was just being ridden. I kinda wish I had done that now. It was getting close to lunchtime, so we ordered some nachos to share. They actually were so good. We all devoured them, but I actually remember how hard it was to save some, because my dad was in the ocean playing and we had to save some nachos for him. Luckily, when we got back, there were still some nachos for him. Somehow I didn't gobble them up before he got back. One of the menu options was octopus with garlic or devil. And we thought that was so funny. I'd like one octopus and make sure to bring in extra devil. The beach was intense, mostly because there were so many people walking around selling things. big walls of merchandise for people to buy and try on. There were people with baskets all around them, people with walls of bracelets, people with donuts on their heads. I mean, who did these people think were gonna buy all of that stuff? Hey, turn that clip off, turn it off! I definitely didn't buy a donut from that guy with donuts on his head. Okay, I don't think you guys understand how good it was though. I ended up chasing that down with a strawberry smoothie from the beach place, and they do smoothies very differently here. It was kind of like a sweet strawberry slushie, and oh my goodness, it was so good. Every time I looked up, there was someone trying to get my attention to sell me something though, which was less than fun. We got very good at saying no gracias without even making eye contact, which makes for some very fun moments when family comes up behind you. We met this dog after we fed him some food, and he just stayed nearby. He was adorable, and I wanted to take him home, but of course, my parents said no. Here is where the pesos come into play. Earlier, you saw on the menu that everything was in pesos, so then we had to convert to dollars to pay in pesos. The staff were confused about what we had bought, and were saying we bought more than we actually did, which was a big struggle because we didn't want to pay more than we had to. It took 25 minutes to get it figured out, and we were trying to leave the beach for so long. Luckily, we got it figured out, and we had taken pictures of our receipts so we had proof. So, we finally got to take the ferry back. I can't get over how beautiful it was. We ended up having to split our group into 2 different ferries, which was nerve-wracking because they just started driving away with the rest of our group. Luckily, everyone got assembled again, and we were happy to be back to the mainland. Before we could get onto the ship though, some family wanted to walk the Blue Line, which was a historical route here in Mazatlan. Before we left, we had to make a stop in the gas station bathroom for most of us, and that took a fat minute. While we were walking, we passed this really creepy playground which looked abandoned. Unfortunately, I know it wasn't abandoned, just really out of shape. I mean, look at that terrifying slide. After we got to the Mazatlan Centro, we shopped a little bit and found pretty places to walk around. We were all exhausted though, so there wasn't too much walking around. This is where I had a dumb experience though. I walked up to a stand, wanting to buy something, and these teenage girls spoke Spanish to me. I'm assuming they asked me if they could help me find something, so I told them, no hablo español, because I don't. And they laughed and told me they were speaking English. I refused to believe that, but yeah, maybe I was a little tired, so, Anyways, we were all too tired after the day to walk back, so we took an open-air taxi, which was sick. I felt like I was on a Disney ride going through these streets. And it was an even more fun time listening to my dad try to communicate with what little Spanish he knew to the driver. It was a lot of nodding and smiling. We got back to the tourist port, saw some cool and kind of funny souvenirs, and then got back to the ship port. We were so ready to get back on the ship, but we had to take the shuttle first. It's always such a cool view when the ship comes back into your line of sight. It just feels so grand and like a welcome back. It's the best feeling, especially when you want to get back on the ship. So of course, we did end up getting back on, thank goodness. There was actually no worry of not getting back on, but I'm still glad we did. And we got back to our rooms, where there was a new towel animal. I can't remember if we decided this one was a koala or an elephant. And there was an announcement about tomorrow's New Year's Eve festivities. Not every cruise gets this, and I'm excited. Of course, it's always snack time, so I had to get the Caribbean Dream Pizza, which was so good. And tonight was tropical night, so I put on my tropical shirt before heading to dinner. And dinner was also beautiful tonight. I love seeing the beautiful landscapes out the windows. Tonight for dinner, we had some delicious food. There was some risotto, some pasta, and some other things too fancy to pronounce. We had a surprise show during dinner too, which was exciting, celebrating our waiters on tropical night, which was awesome. We wave our napkins in the air to show our appreciation. Such weird culture cruises are. Of course, our waiters started dancing for us, and they brought the energy. Sometimes the waiters are really the best part of dinner. Of course, we had to have a little dance party to the Macarena at dinner. Don't even know where it came from or why we were doing it, but it was awesome. We were all just having so much fun. I wish we did this at home, just random dinner dance parties with 1,500 other people. Our last course was dessert, and I had their lava cake and something else that was already gone by the time I could have recorded it. I can't believe I was that hungry, but don't worry, that won't be the most desserts I'll have had by the end of this cruise. We had to do some cousin and grandparent pictures in our beautiful tropical gear, and that was done pretty quickly. I have no idea how they turned out, but we look amazing with this backdrop. Tonight, we reserved laser tag. On a cruise? I had no idea that was even a thing. They converted the ice rink in Studio B into an inflatable laser tag arena, and the aesthetics were all there. We were trying to colonize Planet Z, and we had to fight against the other team to gain control of it. We got instructions in this cool tiny room, and it prepared us for war. We were stretching, getting ready, and I was going to dominate. We blasted up, went into the arena, and then of course my team won. I was Seki, the winning player for my team. I totally carried. I'm just now realizing how much we really did today. I went to the Windjammer and got my nightly snack, of course. It's a tradition at this point. And it was pretty good, but there was no cool dessert tonight. I then met up with the rest of my family at the silent dance party. We all had our headphones on and we could only hear the music, so without the music, it kind of sounded like this. Yes, I know. We all look like real dorks without the music. Kind of just a muffled cult of clappers and shakers. The conga line was even better because everyone truly looked like they were in a cult, all synchronized and everything. No cult here though, just silent dance parties. There was one last show that we wanted to go to tonight, and I had to grab a snack before I went to it. So more pizza, cookies, and sandwiches. The show was a love and marriage game show, and it was really, really funny. The people they chose were so funny, and every question was a new level of trap. Every answer was another fight they would have after the cruise, but it wasn't totally appropriate. Of course, we all were going to bed, and I was ready for bed, and very clearly, so was my sister Kenzie. After that long day, it was midnight, and we were finally going to sleep. It is morning once again, the last day of 2024. Today is the day of Puerto Vallarta, which you could immediately see out of the windows in the Windjammer. I got myself a custom omelet this morning and ate that with my mom and dad. Now the one thing I haven't talked about yet is that avocado toast. I must say, definitely the best thing that I had for breakfast every morning. Anyways, as always, I took donuts back to my room, and this one sweet roll which was delectable, and admired the beautiful view out of my super real window. We could just see buildings from where we were, but I could tell it was going to be a real warm day. Walking out onto the Royal Promenade, I noticed that everything was set up for New Year's Eve. A countdown saying 14 hours till 2025, and balloons strung up quite nicely, and I could tell there would be a big celebration later. I was so ready to party. At about 11 o'clock, it was time for us to get off the ship, so I made my way down to the gangway on deck 1. And when we got off the ship, I felt like I was in a totally different world. The heat was turned up to 11, and the sun was beating against the ship more than it probably ever has. But seriously, it was so hot. I needed the hat and sunglasses. My parents started figuring out directions, and it was evident to them in the map that we weren't going to make it to our excursion on time. Luckily, we just had a super dumb GPS, and we made it with lots of time to spare. The GPS obviously didn't know the back roads we planned on taking, and clearly didn't know that we wouldn't even stop to look at the beauty of the ship. But we made it to the bus stop with everyone that was coming on this excursion, which meant not Grandma, Grandpa, or Jenny. And as we watched the bus pull up, we realized that it looked just like a cattle car. We didn't know how much we would feel like cattle though. Everything was just made of the jankiest materials. Though I can solidly say that the views as we drove were impeccable. We got some amazing views of the city life and the best views of the ocean. We got all kinds of views. But as we started to get into less pleasant roads, I realized that this contraption had no suspension. We were being shaken like baby toys, and we were all so relieved to finally arrive in the beautiful jungle environment of, oh my gosh, is that a spider? Get me out of here. Let's just say I did not go to the bathroom while I was here because of these gigantic spiders. They were everywhere. You could not go anywhere without seeing one, and I wanted out. I wanted out so badly. Anyways, this jungle housed a massive zipline course, and it was so much fun. Though they didn't allow any cameras past the preparation point, so I didn't get any footage. Kind of sad, but I got to live completely in the moment, which was great. As we all got ready to go up, we put our helmets on and our phones away in some lockers, and afterwards, we got to chill and I saw this adorable bird that seemed very curious about our group. I wanted to pet it, but I really didn't want my finger to be bitten off, so I chose not to. It was 2 o'clock at this point, and we had to wait for the bus thing to come back, so this worker set up 5 tables and brought all these chairs out for us. He was such an energetic guy. We took a glance at the menu and hoped that this time pesos wouldn't be an issue. And while some people were looking at the menu, others were playing with this white cat that we found. Smart cat hanging around where the food is, like these chips and salsa, and these nachos. The nachos were actually really good, but for 6 people, it wasn't a ton, which is actually good for us because none of us were that hungry. Unfortunately, the salsa was very spicy, so I didn't have too much. Though these nachos, I don't know what it was about them, but I wanted like 3 more plates all to myself. As we finished our food, people started exploring, and we found this slide into this river that looked quite dangerous. I felt like just being around the river, I would get like 7 diseases, though it was very pretty. I love running water. It's just so calming. There was this rope hanging down from a tree, and we dared Grace to go swing on it, which she actually did. I kind of wanted to see her fall into the river, but unfortunately she's a competent human being. Though as soon as my dad was going to try to do it, I knew that he would totally fall in. But my prediction was wrong, though, because he didn't slide off the rope and he actually made it back. Unfortunate. Finally, our bus thing arrived and we were all ready to get bussed back in this beautiful sunshine of Mexico. While we waited for the driver to return, Joe smashed open a coconut and ants poured out, which was gross and they kept stomping on it. Note to self, don't jump on dead coconuts. We started heading back to the port and this drive was super pretty. I was sure we were going to die though. This driver absolutely was terrifying, and pretty sure he scared himself a couple of times. He was cruising down the mountains, not even stopping for blind turns, which almost killed us more than once. But it honestly was so much fun. I'm not complaining about the driving, because it felt like we were on a roller coaster, and we were all just laughing and having so much fun. But it's no wonder that we felt like we were in a cattle car. When we started seeing the ocean again, that's when we knew we were close to the port. The tunnels were by far the most fun part of the ride though. My legs were shaking as we got off, and I was excited to be back on solid land after that hour-long drive back to the port. It was finally time to get back on the boat, and once again, we were all exhausted. A crazy time that we had today, and we just had to hurry to dinner once we were back on the ship, since it was 4:30 at the time we returned to port. The port entrance was a mall-type thing, and it had this open courtyard where it was covered with a bunch of mini umbrellas. The vibes were off the charts. We were taking the walk from the port entrance to the cruise ship, and we got to see the vastness of our cruise ship. It made me wonder how many of those bus things we could fit into this big cruise ship. And then we got back on the ship at 5 o'clock, and we were officially late for dinner. So we hurried and showered and changed out of our sweaty and gross clothes and headed to dinner. Since it was New Year's Eve, it was an extra formal night, so we had to get into our nice clothes again. We arrived and they had these fancy menus that no one else on any other cruise gets. It was super exciting for us, and we felt so fancy with all the decorations. They decked out the whole cruise with New Year's decorations, and we were excited to wear them and have fun with them. They really added to our experience at dinner. Right as we started sailing away from Puerto Vallarta, we got our food, and most of us ended up getting the beef Wellington, which had some really interesting textures. I remember tonight being a night of many new tastes and textures, which also meant a lot of sent back food, unfortunately. Not everyone could stomach the new foods. Now tonight was a special night. It was New Year's Eve, which means I treated myself by ordering half of the desserts on the menu. I ordered 3 desserts. 2 jelly donuts, the royal chocolate cake, and a rolled sponge cake. Which may sound like a lot, and though it totally was a lot, and people thought I was crazy, I finished it all, and I didn't feel even a little bit guilty. Though I did feel a lot a bit sick. but hey, I'll get over it. Oh, and by the way, it was Emma's birthday tonight, which means they brought out a birthday cake for her and we all got to sing to her, which was a great moment. And once again, because I have issues, 45 minutes after dinner, I took a stop in the Windjammer to eat some more food. Truly hit more spots. At this point, there were less than 4 hours until midnight, which also meant I had to stay up for 4 more hours. So I started by going to a show called Friendly Feud. This was a wonderful show, but oh my goodness, there were so many issues with it. One of the categories they had to guess was favorite condiments, and they got 4 out of 6 of them before they ran out of guesses. Can you guess what the last 2 were that they couldn't get? Salad cream and brown sauce. Someone please explain to me what those are, because no one on this entire cruise ship could figure out what those were. This earned the host of the game show the nickname Brown Sauce for the rest of the cruise, which was, in fact, hilarious. Overall, the 3 categories that were chosen were ridiculous, and the answers were clearly chosen by some crew member who was tasked with coming up with answers by themselves. Tonight was the first performance of Ice Skate, the Navigator of the Sea's onboard ice skating show in Studio B. It began with a drone show at sea, which you guys can totally check out, already posted on my channel, and then led into the ice skating that was just so impressive. Skating like this on a moving ship is more than spectacular. These are world-renowned ice skaters that were on the ship, and I felt so lucky to be able to see them. The talent on that rink was more than I had ever seen. Such a good show, and I can't wait to watch it again. The hours were ticking by, and our family all gathered to see the high seas again, in the Cosmopolitan Lounge. We got some good seats, sat back, and listened. And this was 1 hour until midnight, which was super exciting. We all jammed for a while, and then I snuck away to go get a good view of the balloon drop at midnight. I ended up finding a good spot on a balcony, and it was such a good view of just how many people were preparing for the new year. It was 11:30 at this point, and so many people had already gathered to get ready. I mean, I could have sworn that every single human on the cruise ship was piled in the Royal Promenade, which did not have enough space for all these people. I chose the right spot, having a bird's eye view of everything. By 11:45, other people came to squeeze in with me at this balcony, and that drove me insane. With 5 minutes till midnight, all of the high-ranking crew members came and stood on this balcony here, and started getting ready for the craziness that would be this New Year's balloon drop. It was so close to 2025. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year's! The balloons went everywhere, everyone went crazy, and a massive mess was created. After the celebration, I went back down to find where my family was, so I could say Happy New Year's to everyone. But making my way through this crowd was a nightmare. So many drunk people, and so many people just crammed into one place. But finally, I found my people, and we were so excited for 2025. As we looked around, we realized the mess that this celebration was. I was so curious about how this was all going to be cleaned up by the morning. Us cousins decided that 12:30 isn't bedtime, so we went and explored some, got some more food, and just walked around for a bit, talking. We were hyped up on adrenaline, and we're so happy about how today went. I mean, we probably spent way too long talking though, because it was 2 a.m. by the time I got back to my room, and my sister and I watched TV shows until 3 a.m. No such thing as staying up too late on New Year's. I even made a late night pizza run at 2:30 a.m. for us, so that we could have some snacks while watching TV. Happy New Year's, everyone. We will see how we all feel tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. It's the morning of day 6, and clearly I am very tired, despite it being 10:30 in the morning. I woke up and immediately had to go try the slides, because I hadn't yet. They were thrilling, and I'm glad that I ended up trying them. I got showered and dressed and went to breakfast all alone this morning and had this gorgeous view and ate some French toast. The Royal Promenade had this cake on display, and it looked so good. I had no idea what it was for, though. Of course, had to have some ice cream while admiring the view. I'm gonna be totally honest, I think today was like a fever dream of random stuff, since I was just so exhausted from the night before. Us cousins got together around noon to make some napkin designs, and we ended up being quite good at this. Well, some of us were better than others, but we all had fun. There was this random guy that even got up, went to the front, and taught the host a whole new way to fold a napkin, called the Sydney Opera House way. After that, we went back to our rooms, where I found a towel animal, to get ready for mini golf. It was so windy this high on the ship at the front, so I was excited to see how mini golf ended up. Let's just say that none of us were that good at mini golf, and we have no idea who really won. But Grandma came to join us, and I'm pretty sure no matter the score, she definitely won. Lauren was also playing with us, and she is especially good. She hits so hard that her ball flew over the glass fence and straight into the ocean. Pretty sure that's some sort of federal offense, so we didn't let her play after that. Just kidding. Her ball was blue, and as you can see, so is the ocean. So we're never finding that ball. Like we were gonna find it anyways. I'm pretty sure we blamed very poor shots on the wind because it was really blowing, and we didn't want to admit that none of us could really play. Allegedly, our scorekeeper figured out that I won, but everyone was skeptical about that. After mini golf, we all headed to an event at the pool deck, which John and Jake were both competing in. It was such a sunny day, but it really was pretty chilly with the wind and being on the ocean, which meant that Lauren and I had to go try the tube slide while it was open before it was closed because of the wind. So that's exactly what we did before the event. The event that Jake and John were both competing in was the belly flop competition. We were ready to see some pain. Jake scurried up to the box and ended up really showing off and was definitely ready to belly flop. I honestly think he made one of the biggest splashes out of everyone, but he was too head forward, so people didn't want to rank him as high, as if his head taking the blunt of the blow really made it hurt any less. Anyways, it was John's turn next. Or should I say, Josh, the most adventurous man in the world. They mispronounced his name when he went up to compete, so we called him Josh. Josh really put on the biggest show possible. He was basically Godzilla. I mean, he somehow made it totally not cringy though, and we were all able to be around him for the rest of the cruise, so I'd say he did a really good job riling up the crowd. He had a spectacular belly flop. It just ended up being a little bit lopsided, which lost him some good points. We were all flashing our fives, though, as the score checker went around checking our scores. Unfortunately, neither of them won. Jake with a score of 3.774, and Josh with a score of 3.772. Somehow 0.002 points away from each other, with Jake ahead of Josh. We were all so hungry after the competition, so we got some lunch at the Windjammer around 2 o'clock. And then that led us to the Progressive Trivia, round 3, in the Star Lounge. We got 12 out of 20 this time, which isn't the best, but honestly, pretty impressive since we guessed a date, and it was right somehow. We got to chill for a while after Progressive Trivia to regain some energy before dinner. And dinner was not quite as pretty as the other days, but still gorgeous with the sun trying to blind us. All of the cousins used their previously learned napkin folding skills to fold the napkins at dinner, and we felt like real professionals. Maybe we should work on the cruise ship. Dinner tonight was technically formal dress, but since we also had formal dress the night before, most of us ignored it and stayed comfortable. There were some really good options for dinner today, but by far the best option was the champagne that John received from the belly flop contest. He ran into one of the hosts for it, and he just got handed champagne. Unfortunately, none of us drink, so we just handed it off to some other guests to go get drunk with. We received these conversation cards at dinner tonight, which was a lot of fun, and I thought it would fail, but it actually led to some really interesting conversations. We got our appetizer as the sun was just setting, and that was when dinner started getting really gorgeous. Tonight was the fancy lobster night, which Kenzie and I split, and we both didn't like it too much, so our other main courses were important to fill our stomachs, like this tortellini, which was delicious. We watched the sky turn a spectacular shade of orange as the chefs came out to be celebrated, because they really did a spectacular job on this cruise. We had very few complaints about the food, and most of all of it was just delicious. Tonight, we got the baked Alaska for dessert, and the meringue on top was so delicious. I wish I could make dessert like this at home. I also ended up getting the lava cake again because it was just so good last time. About an hour after dinner, at 7:30, we all met up in the Cosmopolitan Lounge with white elephant gifts that we had gotten from the ports. We all were given a $10 limit for any souvenir from any port, that we would then makeshift wrap and play a fun white elephant game to determine whose we got to keep. Though the rules started as quite confusing, we all caught on quite quickly, and we're having fun with our gifts wrapped in towels, plastic bags, paper bags, and clothes. I think the most important part of the white elephant game wasn't the gifts, and it wasn't the wrapping, and it wasn't the game, but rather the fact that we were all together having fun. I cherish the moments on this cruise that we could all just be having fun together. I ended up with this adorable turtle and little box from Puerto Vallarta, and took that and headed to the Windjammer before it closed. Tonight they had some really good shish kebabs and some great cake. Somehow this little terrace was open tonight, so we all piled around this massive table and got to laugh and have fun as a family. Most of us were there, like there was me, of course, then there was Jen, my aunt, and Wendy, my other aunt, then there was Shonda, my mom, Dave, my dad, then of course there was Millie, my cousin, Lauren, my other cousin, Sophie, another cousin, John, or Josh, my uncle, then there was Grace, and then Kara, both of those are my cousins, and my sister Kenzie. Once again, just a lovely time of being together. Once we were done eating, I knew I had to check out the Teens Club, and it honestly was the lamest one out of all the cruises I've been on. There was no good talking area, it was located in a totally secluded space of the ship, and it was just really boring. I think they don't realize that teens love to just talk to each other. Though I can say that it was very modern and very well decorated. There was no issue with the look of the place, and it was called the Living Room, which is a pretty cool name. The Star Lounge was hosting a totally inappropriate game show tonight called Perfect Couple, and I left that pretty quickly to head instead into the Royal Theatre, where a singing show was being held. And man, that guy was talented. I didn't stay long though, and I headed back to my room around 11 o'clock, way too late for how tired I was, and flopped on my bed to finally go to sleep. It is the last day on this cruise ship, day 7 of our trip, and as you can tell, I woke up early enough to go to breakfast at 9 a.m. All of the cousins got together and planned a cousin breakfast this morning in the main dining room, which felt so fancy. We got sat next to these massive windows with a beautiful view of the ocean. It was the first time during this trip that morning actually felt like morning, and I think it was because of how I woke up and immediately went to breakfast instead of sitting in bed for ages. We somehow got sat in the section that our server for dinner normally serves, which means he already knew us, which was lucky. He asked how many donuts we wanted, and I really wanted to say like 15, but instead I stuck with 1, and then stole someone else's, so I got 2. It was so nice having a cousin breakfast where we all actually organized ourselves. I ordered the French toast and bacon, and it was scrumptious. I've never said that word before. Huh. After breakfast, we all stuck together and found some other places to do things. We kind of looked like a gang as we walked through the casino, but we found some fun trivia in the Schooner Bar and totally aced this Broadway musical trivia. We even had our musical professional, Jenny, with us, and she got more than everyone. We had our family scavenger hunt soon after this, which Grandma had organized throughout the week. We had little tasks like pose with ice cream cones, and whoever got the most tasks done in 15 minutes won. And we had to return to the original place in 15 minutes too. That was a ton of fun. What was awesome was that Grandma put in the work to write out like 4 different copies of these tasks, all handwritten. The amount of work she puts in so we have fun is intense. As we were walking around, we saw the piano dude setting up his stuff in the elevator, and we couldn't wait to hear more of him. Didn't even know putting a piano into an elevator like that was possible. We finished the scavenger hunt, and everyone who had done the scavenger hunt wanted to have lunch in the main dining room as well. And we were put at the exact same table as breakfast. The servers already knew everything we wanted and were just awesome. We played pig out while we waited for our food, and for my appetizer, I got the best mozzarella sticks ever. They were so good. And then I got an amazing pulled pork sandwich soon after that, and closed off lunch with key lime pie. I'm pretty sure at this point during the cruise, we were all beginning to go delusional and lose our minds, and I wanted to show that from this text string. It really makes no sense rereading it, but the fact that there are 18 people in this group chat makes it feel even better. No one really knows what's happening, but everyone was laughing their butts off as we had this conversation. Like, what does fearing for fear mean? We will never know because now we are not that sleep deprived anymore. Well, that wonderful conversation happened, and then we went to the final progressive trivia, and we were so bad at this one. In the end, we ended up scoring 31 out of 80, and it actually was the lowest score out of anyone in the room that we found out. Good job us. For a while, it was just chill time. No one really felt like doing much, and we were all exhausted. So Kenzie and I sat in the solarium reading and watching the view for a while. It was actually insanely calming, and I wish I took more time to do this during the cruise. I took a break from chilling in the solarium and went to record the drone show once again, because it blew my mind so much. Once again, you can find the full version on my channel. And I had to see this guy do a backflip on ice skates again, because last time I just couldn't believe my eyes. Quickly after that, I went to dinner, where the sky was cloudy once again. That's how I knew we were getting close to the coast of California. I shed a tear. I got these amazing sweet and sour pork gyros or tacos, and they were delicious. Before dessert, we got to say thank you to all of these servers, because really, they all made our cruise such a good experience. I cannot imagine working their hours and their jobs, because each of them has like 6 jobs to do on the ship that they transfer between. They really are an amazing crew, and I felt like we didn't give them enough appreciation throughout the cruise. Amazing jobs. The dessert tonight was carrot cake, and it might have just been the best carrot cake I've ever had. No, like, seriously. I also got the blueberry cobbler, and it was alright. For the last part of dinner, the crew sang for Grandma and Grandpa, because this cruise was to celebrate their 50th anniversary. At 7 o'clock, the karaoke began, and the cousins wanted to do a big send-off for this cruise, so we signed ourselves up. Everyone had some real good seats to see us, so it was clear they were ready to see something spectacular. And here we are, all 9 of us singing, "What Makes You Beautiful." I didn't even lose any of my dignity doing this, but now I'm posting it for the world to see, so... You don't know what makes you beautiful. We'll see if that stays the same. Here's a little clip of us singing, because I know y'all want it. Something big was coming up soon, but I can't tell you what it is. But here you can see Eric and I waiting very patiently for what it is. But, aha! It's the flash mob! Surprise! This was kept an amazing secret during the whole cruise, and no one knew what was happening. Yeah, just kidding, everyone knew. But John, Kara, Millie, and Wendy all really knew what it was about. They were killing it in the flash mob, and had practiced practically every day for the last week. John even got some special solo parts. I was the designated videographer for it, because at this point, I think my family had noticed that I was filming everything, and was competent enough for it. I got to go pretty high up on the stairs to the bridge, which are normally employees only, which was sick. After that, we all crowded into an elevator to go celebrate with some chocolate fountain desserts up in the Windjammer. Once again, the terrace was open, and the chocolate fountain was so good with the strawberries and marshmallows. I mean, it really is clear when I show this food that I have a problem. Fries, apple cobbler, ice cream, pizza, chocolate fountain treats, and somehow, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't gain any weight from this cruise. It's a miracle! With our white elephant gifts from last night, we wanted to put on a traveling band in the elevators. So here's a little audio clip of the loveliness that all of the guests of our elevator got to hear. Unfortunately, tomorrow is our disembarkation day, and we had to get everything packed. So, here Kenzie and I are, totally not getting distracted at all while packing everything up. I think I did a little more packing than her at this time, but I'm sure she'll get it done in time before we have to leave tomorrow. It's crazy how much cleaner and emptier our room felt after we got some packing done. It may not look like it, but it felt like it. Of course, we had to celebrate the cruise one last time with a silent party. There were so many people that wanted to come to this one. We all made a little group near the entrance and partied the night away. I mean, look at all of our sick moves here. Y'all are hearing exactly what it sounded like, but it was so much more fun being able to hear the music, to be honest. I mean, even Grandma was getting jiggy with it. It's even better because half of us are listening to one song and the other half is listening to another song. Sadly, that had to come to an end, and I had to get the last slice of pizza that I would get the entire cruise. Such a sad day. Oh, I got myself the cookie, pizza, and red velvet cake, and I was not excited for it to be my last. As you can see, our room is all ready to go, all set for disembarking, and we were ready to roll. As always, we'll see how that goes tomorrow. Good morning. We are rolling off right now on the morning of day 8. This was a quick moving day, so we very quickly woke up and brought our luggage to the main dining room, where we would all have breakfast this morning. Once again, we got sat in the same place as yesterday's meals, and they got us donuts immediately. It was clear that they were trying to get people moving and grooving through breakfast. I got the same meal as yesterday as well, French toast with bacon, but this time I got a hash brown with it. Right after breakfast, it was our time to get off the ship. So we said our goodbyes, and some took much longer than others. Looking at you, Mom and Dad. But we were all getting off, which meant goodbye to our cousins that live in Ohio, unfortunately. We got off the same way we got on, and it was no fun rolling our suitcases with us in what seemed like the wrong direction. It felt all industrial, and I was not ready for the harsh contrast that California was to Mexico. We got to Long Beach Airport and waited for our flight. We ended up getting some food here, and for 2 chicken tenders, it cost me $16. Isn't that ridiculous? I love Salt Lake City Airport, and how they don't overcharge more for food. Anyways, we got boarded onto our flight in what seemed to be the most thrilling way. We got to board it from the outside. I felt like I was in some sort of spy movie. I don't really know why though. Delta for the win. This isn't sponsored though. Our flight to Salt Lake City was smooth, and we left the airport feeling very content about our trip. Thanks everyone for letting me share all of the memories that I shared in the last hour. I hope you enjoyed this video journal type video, and I hope it was at least a little bit useful to anyone taking a trip aboard the Navigator of the Seas soon. That's a wrap. Thanks for watching.
I just feel all the little ancestors around us and all the angels around us and protecting us and guiding us and leading us just the way they always have. But at the same time, this funny thing has happened that I've been kind of, not like them, terrible, but I've been seeing with peace that is, I'm like, okay, this is our 50. What's your 50? What's your 50? What's your 50? And I'm just like, get chills thinking, someday you will have a 50 and you'll have 21. You'll have 21. You will have 21. And it will just be so beautiful to see. I just wish we could know what's coming, the kids that are coming, as well as we know, even though we don't know the ones that came before us. Because I think all those angels are around us too, saying, you go, go, go. Anyway, I just thought this was the most beautiful thing. And I wanted you to know, as much as I worried ahead of time, or at least thought about things ahead of time, I have been so comforted to know that I can go anywhere and Sophie will grab Grandpa, or Lauren will hug me, or Kenzie will talk to me, or, you know, there's always somebody who's going to take care of somebody. And especially with Grandpa, it's just like, I didn't even think about it. I knew somebody was thinking about him. I mean, I did think about it, but somebody was thinking about him, and then if they saw him somewhere, they'd take care of him. It was just like, can you imagine if this is 21 times generations, how many people are taking care of each other? It was just like turning me, just crazy. So anyway, I love you all. Really fun. That's the end.